And all of this constitutes really what's really going on in our lives today is all of our culture is an endless, one big satanic ritual taking place. Politics is the first part of it. Okay, we've already looked at the first part of the satanic ritual. That's contained in this slide itself, a master-slave society. We're all taking part in the entirety of the enslavement of society. That's all part of the ritual to enslave humanity. That's what government all is. People participating in their own enslavement as a ritual. It all has its rituals, you know. Rituals out in front of the White House, signing rituals, signing bills into law rituals, you know, holiday rituals. It's all ritualistic dark magic. That's all it ever has been. But this is how a general master-slave society is structured, is oriented. A very simple dynamic, a very simple representative graph of a pyramidal structure, where you have a small group of people that sit enthroned or enshrined at the top of the structure. The rest of the society is set up hierarchically, and often you will see this pyramid compartmentalized into different vertical strata, where one aspect of the society, such as banking, doesn't know what the other aspect, such as illegal drugs or medicine, is doing. They're not only stratified in layers of knowledge, levels of knowledge, but they're also compartmentalized into compartments of knowledge so that one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. And that's another way of more easily controlling people, not just through hierarchical strata, but through compartmentalized strata. So people think that this is the only form of hierarchy that exists in a master-slave society, that it's the masters at the top, and then underneath them you have them directly ruling over their slaves. As the slave class is the bulk of the population, and the masters basically run the society and tell the slaves what they can and cannot do. This is a pure oversimplification of the actual way that the structure of a master-slave relationship, or master-slave society, I should say, actually functions. It's more complicated than this. So my expanding of this is how a real master-slave society actually functions in deed, in behavior. You have middle managers or middle classes of masters that are also actually slaves to this set of masters over them, with obviously more and more of them as you go closer and closer to the slaves at the very bottom, which is the general population. And most people who study this dynamic of our society will admit, yes, this is how it works. You have the masters at the very top, the slaves at the very bottom, and you have middle management groups like governments and then banking institutions that and corporations that, you know, are structured in ways where they are both the masters over people and people underneath them, but they are also serving the masters at the very top level. But this leaves something out, folks. It leaves two very, very important dynamics out that most people who do research into the way that the occult works, the way that conspiratorial aspects of our society work, never take into consideration. And it's extremely important for both of these factors to be taken into consideration when looking at the stratification of the way our entire social dynamic structure works. And here's the first one. If you look at this bottom level, which represents the masses of people, the uneducated, unwashed masses of people who have no idea what's going on at the levels above them, okay? They are not only just slaves, but they are masters as well. And that's very odd for people to hear someone say. Very odd thing. Most people will never bring up this dynamic, okay? But the overwhelming vast bulk majority of the average human being is not just a slave, but they are also masters over other slaves. So we act as police and masters over each other in many ways, with policing what we ourselves think and what other people can and can't think through political correctness and politically correct speech, which is just self-censorship. But most people never think of this. If you actually leave, this structure represents human society. If you leave this structure to the bottom, what are people ultimately acting as horrific, violent, torturing masters to? The entire animal kingdom. That's what we are acting as masters in this massive, satanic, never-ending satanic ritual over the animals that we barbarically treat and barbarically butcher endlessly, all day long, every single day. 10 billion land animals alone a year, conservative estimate. Probably many more than that. Over 100 billion, maybe 150 billion total animals slaughtered every year for human food needs alone. So-called food needs. Let me tell you something, folks. What inspired this entire presentation, as a brief aside to this slide, and again, like I said, if we finish today, we finish. If not, we continue next week. But as a brief aside, what inspired this entire presentation is, in the lead up to Independence Day, I did a little bit of biking and walking around my neighborhood. Sometimes I do that for exercise. You know, I hit the gym, and sometimes I bike there. You know, sometimes I'll drive there, sometimes I'll walk there. But, you know, I like to bike to get out in the sun, get some exercise, or just walk out in the sun. I'm taking a walk one day, and you know, I go and deliver packages, and then sometimes I'll just take a walk through the neighborhood for, you know, a mile or two, just for some good exercise. And I'm walking through the neighborhood, and I'm just over and over just smelling animal carcasses all over the place. Outdoor cookouts in people's homes. And I'm just thinking, it's like this is nonstop. This is only one small, tiny neighborhood in South Philadelphia. Imagine this, citywide. Then imagine it statewide, then countrywide, then continent-wide, then worldwide. It's going on non-stop every second of every day. It's a 100% complete torture, murder, and death ritual with the animal kingdom, non-stop. And that's this level of the pyramid, that the main slaves, the human slaves, that are the basic bottom level of the pyramid, controlled by all the other masters above them, are masters themselves. Because in Satan's kingdom, in the kingdom that is ruled by Satanism, by the involutionary force, again, I don't look at it as a deity, as an actual entity. That's not how these Satanists look at it either. It's a nature force that is operating in the universe itself and is pushing the dynamics of society ass backwards and counteracting natural law and the true evolution of consciousness. It's counteracting that force. That's why it's the adversary or the opposer or the involutionary or entropic force. Okay? It wants every level of human society to be both masters and slaves, so that they are always a master over a level below them, but yet slaves to a level above them. And that's exactly what our society has become. Because not only do the slaves at the bottom level also act as torturous, barbaric masters over the animal kingdom below them, which is the slave level below them, but the so-called highest level masters of the dark occult organizations at the very top of this stratified pyramidal structure that we're using as a model here to represent the master-slave human society, they are not just masters, but they themselves are slaves to a level above them. And then we can go off into conjecture about what that level is. And folks, I'll tell you what I've told people what I think that level is and have made no bones about it. And I don't give a rat fuck what people think about what I think through my research, through my endless amounts of painstaking, laborious research into ancient documentation about what is actually ruling humanity at a higher level. And who gives the directives to the so-called occult rulers or masters that operate as rulers over all of our human society. It goes off into a non-human domain. And that is a physical non-human domain of a type 2 civilization. And then from there, they're even enslaved. And they're enslaved by non-corporeal, hyperdimensional entities who are then even themselves enslaved by the involutionary force itself. It goes on and on and on. As above, so below. But you know what, folks? It is not the natural order of things. If you believe that, you have subscribed to Satanism. That's the real takeaway of this. If you believe that it must be like that, you have subscribed to the ideology that your masters have given you at the mini-me level of Satanism. And that's what so many people will say. Oh, that's just nature. That's just how nature works. It's always been that way and it'll always be that way. Wrong! You're wrong! You have it exactly wrong! And you have subscribed to a satanic ideology. Incorrect, boys and girls. Untrue. Untrue. It is that way in human society through free will choice. Get the fuck over it. No, people want to believe it must be that way through the natural world because they're too weak-willed to change it. And they're too apathetic to change it. And they're too ignorant to change it. Don't tell me that's the way God made it. You're full of fucking shit. You want to believe in the God these people believe in? Go right ahead and say that force made it this way. But don't tell me the force of creation put that slavery into effect and keeps it there permanently, because you are a satanic believing, full of shit for brains punk bitch if that's what you think. And I'll be the one to tell you that just like that, because no one else has the balls to. Boys and girls. It'll leave my lips because it won't leave anybody else's, because they don't have the balls to do it. And they're not righteously angry about it enough that that's a free will choice and can be changed whenever we will it to change. But we don't want to do that work. No, we want to run away from that work. We want to run away from that great work. Because we want to say, it's just that way and it'll always be that way and I don't give a fuck and I don't care. Well, that's why it stays that way.